Guys, they always like to fuck around. And these type of franchises, they just don't give a fuck anymore. And I'm not kidding. It makes me pain to do this, and it's good for the fun of it. But let's just talk about Kraven the Hunter on this episode.
I scream, you scream for movies, and that's what we be doing.
How many of you all ain't surprised Kraven, after a little hope, being committed to an R-rated Spider-Man villain movie, that we thought this would be pretty awesome? But there's always a life situation when it comes to Sony Pictures moving this movie few dozen times. It was supposed to come out in 2023, January to October to this year of August to December currently, as of recording. Is it no shocking when the reactions came out? Isn't there no shocking that every time they give you a little hope, every time somebody behind this film would just remind us to give this film a try, it's its own universe? I know it's its own universe. I know it's its own standalone. Sure, no Spider-Man involved. Of course not. Spoiler alert. But you gotta realize, no one's gonna come onto these movies. It's because Sony Pictures has cratered the Sony Spider-Man villain movie universe. And it's getting ridiculous to the point to where I have to talk about the final Sony Spider-Man villain movie that's going to finally seal the doors. Shut. Kraven the Hunter is finally out. I'm your host, Daniel Kamalaji. Let's talk about Kraven the Hunter. If you guys are new to this channel, subscribe to the podcast. If you're on YouTube or any podcast platform, yada yada yada. Follow my social media platforms, yada yada yada. Sorry if I feel just out of place, but there's a lot of things to talk about in this movie. Now, it's going to be very short because I want to rant about the Sony Spider-Man villain universe that's going to finally end, and I'm going to fully rant and close the doors on it. So, Kraven the Hunter, no shock, like I said. It is a waste of time. You can't expect... Now, look, I will say this. After promising an R-rated action film of this character, which is what we really want, honestly. We want to see if Venom gets that treatment, but unfortunately, no. But they were going to really take this movie to a matter of their own hands. And they tried something unique to what we want. And you know, R-rated comic book movies is the way to go if you think about it. I mean, look at Deadpool this past summer. Giant hit. People still love the movie. Now, is it going to make an R-rated better? Not when you have other issues that yet Sony loves to play hide and go seek. And there it is. Kraven the Hunter is yet to be another full of shit. There's just a lot of things to talk about. And quickly, short note, there's just absolute mess outside. Just to give a little praise, it does give you what you want, at least. It gives you a hardcore action, violent, bloody gore, R-rated Kraven. For sure. It's giving you that. That's what I'm going to say. There's some action scenes that I pretty much like, but they have issues, of course. You know that's going to cause an issue. You know it's going to cause what the criticism is for this movie. You know what's going to cause if you're going to enjoy it or not. I'm just going to say some of the pieces were pretty good to some of the things. Now, it goes to show, it doesn't go to show that it's perfect, like I said. So why do we talk about it here? First off, the editing is putrid. The editing room of this movie is just not good. I can't describe what I witnessed in some parts, but if we're looking at some of the cinematography and some of the action sequences, they're just not good in some degree of the cameraing. That's just not good. The editing department is horrible. There's a lot of that to it. So, whatever you enjoyed or not, that's another issue. There is another issue. This doesn't have a good story. Whatever they throw into this movie, it's just too many plot directions all over this place. That's another bad thing about this movie. It goes to one story to another, and then they dropped in 8 minutes of this movie. I did not look at it. I just want to go in surprise. The 8 minutes looked promising at first. Until they do, for at least 20 to 25 minutes after that, a flashback of young Kraven. There's just... I don't know how to explain it. This is just... There's just nothing interesting about that. I mean, it tells you where it started with this character, but it's just a waste of time because there's some parts of this film that really didn't explain well. And, I don't know. We're expected to see a full action Kraven movie, and they're just giving you a flashback for like 20 to 25 minutes. That takes half the portion of the movie, a little bit. That's another horrible thing I didn't really went into after the first 8 minutes. So, right after the first 8 minutes, things went to shit after that. You just can't expect this, what's going on, really. You just can't. That's another bad thing about it. It's just, you get what you get for the first 8 minutes if you look online, just to bait you in to buy a ticket. And surprisingly, a few older people, and I can't find the people my age, that I went to the locals today, that I went to the theaters today, this is as of this recording, they went to see it, and, no applause. There's probably some people laughing at some parts, which I will get to right this second. They could tell you that if some of the people are laughing at certain scenes, I think it's telling you there's some issues. That tells you the other way around it. Doesn't mean it's truly funny. I'll tell you this right now. Besides the plot direction where this movie goes to after the flashback, it's all over the place. It's just, it doesn't have an identity, is what I'm saying. It doesn't stay with one thing. That's another thing. It's horrible. I'm just confused where it's going to. Where it's heading to, where it's directly important. It just has too much ideas into like an 2-hour movie that lose its sight sometimes. It's just beyond ridiculous. What does this movie really tell you of an origin story? Where is it really going is what I don't understand. Gives you a flashback for 20 minutes after the first 8 minutes, and then it just goes to random direction. Like, please. How do you even... How did the screenwriters went ape shit with this? In bad direction. You also have a very good, notable director, J.C. Chandler. I think that's his name right. He's a solid, good director. He's done other projects that I looked up a few days before the movie came out. He's got great buzz reviews of other of his projects. Sure. But he didn't screenwrite this movie. He was directing it. And clearly, I don't know if he does for the paycheck or not. He just went in with the script, whatever, and just does his best to direct whatever the hell he wanted to do. That's that. That's another thing. I'm confused. Sony keeps hiring these mistakable people to write these movies, and they just turn to shit. But wait, I have more for you, though. I don't know what's even worse for such a bad dialogue comic book movie. First off, you got Madam Web, one of the worst comic book movies to date. You have Morbius, also another messy dialogue. I can't say, or I can't tell which one is worse, but if anything, I could tell you it's Morbius, Madam Web bad, I can say it's the same equality as possible, as for sure. But some of the dialogue is horrible. Most of, I'm sorry. Let me rephrase it. Most of the dialogue in certain scenes is bad. Is horrible. I was like, putting my hand on my head. I was like, what are they doing? What are they talking about? Look, I'm just frustrated is all I'm saying. You don't got the same writers from Adam Webb, but you go ahead and you messed up a dialogue screens of this movie. Like, ugh. That is terrible. And some of the characters, let's just go to the characters real quick. Waste of potential characters. And these characters were not used what I thought they would be developed-wise. There's a lot and a lot of messy characters that were complete potential waste that I didn't really get involved into. Like, none of these characters are interesting. Can we start with Ariana DeBose, who's a support in this? Oscar winner. What is she doing in this movie? She's terrible. Whatever she's been given to, and on top of that, the performances overall and some of the people in this movie, they've been horrible. They just did not. They just half-assed it. She half-assed this character. This wasn't even developed enough. Even the chemistry between her and Aaron Taylor Johnson, which Aaron Taylor Johnson plays Kraven himself, there's not even a good chemistry romance in this movie. None of that. And you're not going to get what you want in these characters. That's for sure. It's horrible. Fred Hedginger, who was from Gladiator 2, who was awesome. He did not need to be in this movie. I don't know. I just didn't like how he's involved in this movie. I'm like, he's in this movie the moment I find out. I'm like, what is he doing in this movie? He plays Kraven's brother, and he's playing a certain character who is based on the comics, who's also wasted. I'm not saying he should be ashamed of himself, but what is he even doing in this movie? That's horrible. Horrible, horrible, horrible. Rhino is in this movie, but you don't get Rhino till like the third act of the movie. Another wasted, and the villain's not even developed well. Just a random guy villain. And you also have another villain in this movie who is Rhino's henchman? That's unexplainable. What is he even doing in this movie? That's what I'm saying. So many plot directions. It's a mess. None of these explain these characters who they are. What does that tell you? And then, God, Russell Crowe. Another somewhat antagonist? Look, that's another part which is a mess. He also plays another villain, who's Kraven's dad. And then, for some reason, I don't know why, but in my opinion, Aaron Taylor Johnson just sounds like Aaron Taylor Johnson. Because if you take a look, if you recall Marvel's Spider-Man 2 last year, Kraven is in that game. He sounds like Russian for sure. But Aaron Taylor Johnson, for some reason, he doesn't sound Russian to how he plays. I don't know. But Russell Crowe gave his good accent of Russian. That's the character that could have sounded like that from Aaron Taylor Johnson. I swear. That's just me personally. But if this was Russell Crowe back then with Kraven, he could have been the character. Honestly. Really. Because he's got the accent of that. But Aaron Taylor Johnson just doesn't do any kind of accent in this movie. He's done probably other accents, but not for this Kraven movie. That's another thing. Sure, I think his stunts in this movie are good, but you don't get any kind of Kraven accent out of this guy. He just half-assed it. That's just another thing. Subpar acting. It's just not good. I don't know what to say about that. I really wasn't soaking in all the way through him. It just wasn't interesting enough. That's what Kraven is. Kraven's supposed to be Russian like that, a Russian accent of his voice. If you play Marvel Spider-Man 2, there's one. The movie itself, just Aaron Taylor Johnson just didn't give a shit. That's all I'm saying. I don't know. I don't know what the hell that was. I don't know what he was doing in this movie. I don't know. He just didn't play. Look, I could sit again. The performance of his action, his stunts were great, were good. It's just the accent and his acting was not good in this movie. And same goes with everybody else and the dialogues they were given. That is horrible. They are horrible in this movie. I could go on and on and on, but I want to, but not this time around. I can't. That is awful. How are they even in this movie? And how did they not even realize how the script they were given? You do it for the paycheck, sure. I'm not here to rant. I'm not here to blast on them. But it's better to be not embarrassed to be in a project, and so they try so hard to leave this behind and be forgotten. Even in most people's cases, if they recall or not. That's horrible. That is horrible. And then the visual effects, look, it's equivalent to Madam Web and Morbius. They're not good. Especially, and just me, the Rhino design just doesn't look appealing. I'm not saying it was the worst, but it doesn't feel like a Rhino design. You'll see what I mean if you end up seeing the movie. If you have, you probably know what the Rhino design looks like. But the Rhino design doesn't seem to be good as I thought. That's another thing. And there's some other visual effects of the editing of this movie that isn't good. And it's just not good. Like, really, it's just not great. It's horrible. The CGI and the visuals are not great in this movie as well. You got another half-ass editing department with this movie that isn't great on all. That isn't the equivalent level to the Venom movie. The visuals in Venom are way better. People can praise that. And they have every right to. Even me. Even The Last Dance, the visuals were better. Like, 5 times better. But with Kraven, no. You don't get exactly what you expect from Venom. That's just the epitome of that. That's another thing. You're not going to get what you expect in terms of visuals. I want to talk about the Sony Spider-Man villain universe in general. Just to cap them off real quick. They were starting pretty solid with the first Venom. And then, it was promising what they have in the sequel, which came out in 2021. Venom Let There Be Carnage. And then, we got the biggest stinger. You got Tom Holland at the end of the post-credits for that sequel. And then, after that, Morbius came out in 2022. They delayed it so many times. And yet, after the first 2 Venom movies, the whole universe itself has officially collapsed. Morbius wasn't good. To the start of that, it's not good. And that post-credit scene wasn't even a good idea. It's terrible. They were trying to form the Sinister Six, and it looks like they were trying to go for that. But also, you had also shitty movies, of course, which really also didn't do them favors as well. 2 years later, you have Madam Web continuing that as a standalone. That was an embarrassing. And considering I heard so many shit reactions, I did not go see this movie. And I was going to see this movie in this season. But, I just wait till it's on streaming. I looked at the movie online. It's horrible. It's fucking horrible. I didn't watch the whole movie, but I watched like certain scenes and just see where it's at. And then it's not good. Fucking hell, it was fucking horrible. It's a disgrace to comic book movies in general. It's a slap. Dakota Johnson just got herself embarrassed for that movie. That's one way to stay in your resume. Don't do comic movies ever again. How about that? That's horrible. Venom: The Last Dance. It's not a super bad. I still enjoyed it a little bit. It's just a complete downgrade than the previous 2 Venom movies. So I can't say it's like the worst thing I've seen this year. It was okay-ish. Not special, really. I mean, it's special the way how it ends off, but other than that, you're not going to get everything you expect from the previous 2 movies. And besides that, the goofy tone of Venom stuff in general for this universe has been a little awkward. So it kind of pisses people off the wrong way, and I get it. So I see where people's feelings at for where Venom is with this tone in this universe. I get it. So I will admit it to agree to most people that agree that talks about what they brought up to Venom. It has been getting goofy. So the way the trilogy ended off, it's perfect. They don't need to touch it anymore. They can leave Tom Hardy alone and don't bring up him back into some matchup unless, I don't know, we'll see what happens. But this is not where you want to really bring Tom Hardy again. You know, just continue on with Tom Holland's Spider-Man in the MCU. Just leave it at that and continue it on. And then Kraven the Hunter, another disgrace. Not as terrible as Madam Web yet again, but it's a terrible comic book movie with Sony Spider-Man villains yet again. It is horrible. This is one of the most wasted franchise potentials universes they ever have. And if we're taking a look at Sony overall, they have not been great, having a great year. Yeah, they're lucky with Bad Boys, Ride or Die with Will Smith. I mean, Will Smith still got the star. But other than that, they just didn't have confidence this year. They didn't even go to CinemaCon this year. They were just ready to shit loose their pants on these movies, quality-wise. But Venom was a hit anyways. Venom 3, Venom The Last Dance. Internationals carried this movie. It did okay-ish domestic run, but it's, you know, it's not as like the first two movies per se. But yeah, all I can say is people love Venom. That's why it hold on pretty well. Venom is Venom. He's the most popular character. So Sony overall isn't having a great year yet again with the Spider-Man villain comic book movies. Putrid. All I could say is I'm so glad and hoping they don't crawl this back again. If they're crawling this back again, they're in deep trouble. We're in trouble. Don't even dare reboot this years later. Leave that shit alone. Just leave it alone, Sony. And fuck off. Don't touch these characters and don't even get these people to come back, or excuse me, don't get these new people that don't know what they're doing. Because I don't know who's handling this shit over there. It's so horrible. I'm so glad Kraven is a nail to the coffin to the Sony Spider-Man villain movies universe. It's a nail to the death coffin. Whatever it ended off, ends it off. It's its own universe. It's shut, sealed. Let it be its own multiverse and don't cross anything. Hell, it'd be so funny if they appeared in the MCU anyways, in like some kind of multiverse concept. But anyways, that shouldn't happen. That really shouldn't happen. Honestly, really. And yet, they could have even decided to bring Spider-Man reference or any kind of, or a Spider-Man character appear at some capacity. Maybe that would have been a little better. But you know what, at the end of the day, there were some horrible decisions on Morbius' post-grad scene. I think it really ruined it. So, I could see where that's at. So, never mind. Don't waste your time with Kraven. Take it from me. It's horrible. I can tell you it's in one of my worst movies of the year. If I did see Madam Web, it would have been like the worst. But Kraven's right up there next to Borderlands, and Borderlands is one of the worst movies I've seen this year. It's really horrible. So that's another adaptation that's completely butchered. Same with Kraven to this character. It made it look bad, and it just doesn't appeal perfect. It's horrible. Whoever wrote this movie, whoever Sony hired, it was horrible. They're horrible. And the people that were involved in this movie, they were horrible. Wasn't clever. Wasn't anywhere entertaining. Again, actions pieces were great. It's not it's not perfect. It's a not perfect movie at the end of the day. So don't bother wasting your time with Kraven this month. My advice, you can go see the new Lord of the Rings anime movie, which it's got terrible marketing, by the way, from Warner Brothers. They just should have been dropped this on streaming. That could have been better. I'd say go see Lord of the Rings. I heard it got decent reaction to it. Not the greatest, like the live action movies. Or this coming month, go see Mufasa, go see Sonic, go see Nosferatu, go see A Complete Unknown. Go see all these movies. And forget about Kraven. And pretend this came out a year ago. Because that should have came out last year. And we would have not had this movie this year. I would have saved another weekend to go to the movies and went to go see Sonic and Mufasa the following week. That would have saved me the trip. I decided to go see it just for the R-rated action. And yeah, it delivers that portion only, but everything else is garbage. Pains me to say I had to do this episode, but you know what? For the fun of it, like I said. So, my rating to Kraven, it's 4 out of 10, 2 stars. And everybody, that's going to do it for this episode of Kraven the Hunter. One of the worst movies of the year, like I said. Don't waste your time. Go see other movies this month. Hell, Mufasa Sonic is going to kick off the holidays just right. So, I mean, there's a lot of things looking forward to next week. And, you know, the holiday movie going in general, it's going to be very fun. Wicked's still riding. Moana's riding along. Gladiator. And you know what? This is going to be an insane box office run for the holidays, for the run of its money, that we will see where it's at. And expect Kraven to fall off a cliff, and they'll drop this on streaming like right closer to New Year's. Because you know the movie's going to be dead in like a week. Once Sonic Mufasa comes out, if you're watching this on YouTube, I just clenched my hand to a closing door sealed. It will die in a week. I expect this to be so bad of a drop that no one may not give a shit. Hell, if people are going to see Kraven the next week during the giant weekend of Mufasa and Sonic, I wouldn't be surprised. But you're going to see it drop very big. So, we'll see. But ladies and gentlemen, thank you for tuning in this episode. If you enjoyed this, subscribe to the podcast. If you're just listening to the podcast audio, you're not getting the whole story. You'll get to see my face on YouTube, just waving my hand here. So subscribe to the YouTube. And if you're actually watching this on YouTube, if you enjoy, if you're new to this channel, subscribe, hit the like button, comment. If you have seen Kraven, let me know what you think. My social media platforms, Twitter and TikTok, they'll both be in the show notes. And my Letterboxd, it's available to look up or look into. Sorry. If you want to look at my Letterboxd, just check it out. Fuck it, we're doing it live. And guys, like I said, Sonic, Mufasa, 2 giant episodes that I'm excited to go into. Please expect these 2 episodes. And one of those episodes, I'm going to have a very special guest. If I can get him, if I can have him on, just figuring it out as we speak. But I can't wait to have this dude on. Might be a new guest appearance. And if he doesn't join in the day, I guess you can pretend that didn't happen. That's so. But guys, until then, this is Dan Scamligi signing off of I Screen, You Scream 4 number 4 movies. Stay screaming for the movies, and I'll see you guys in the next review. Peace.